Welcome back to Quest for Completion Live Edition. This is episode 3, and I'm actually recording this episode just about a day after I uploaded the last one. So that's pretty good. I'm hoping I'm able to upload it and do all the recording pretty quickly, but we will see. It'll definitely be out within the next 2 weeks, so I will have met that goal that I set for myself last episode. Anyways, I have an announcement to make. It's pretty big slash minor announcement, but if you don't really care about it that much, then you can go ahead and skip to the part where we're doing DreadDungeon on Nightmare Hardcore. We're gonna be doing the survival of this map, and the build I'm using for both the campaign and the survival is one that I was given to by Chiku the Darkling on YouTube. It's a really good build. It's super efficient for our stats, and it's very simple to build, so I think you guys are going to love it. So thank you to Chiku for giving me that build. And by giving me the build, I mean I took it off of him without his permission. Thank you. Anyways, the announcement, right. So, as I said in the last episode, I have planned out the route that we're going to be taking for the walkthrough. And I want to show you guys what that is. So let's go over what we've done so far. We did Deeper Well on Insane and Hard, then we did DreadDungeon on all these difficulties, then for XP, and then we were able to do Tinker's Lab on Nightmare Hardcore, the first wave of it. We got our mythical armor sets and to level 74 from that. And then last episode we did Moonbase on Hardcore to get all of our Fish in a Bowl pets, and this is where we are now. By the way, I am on local because I was testing stuff out. Don't worry, we'll be back on ranked pretty soon, but that's where I am now. And what I plan to do in the future, the whole rest of the route is it's pretty short actually. It's pretty condensed. So this episode we'll be doing DreadDungeon, as I've explained. We'll be doing survival DreadDungeon until we have enough gear to have about 3-ish, 2.5 to 3k in our primary stat for all of our builders. And primary stat just means like the main stat that they care the most about. So for Apprentice, it's damage, and for the other heroes, I'll explain that later. Okay, so that's the goal, right, for this episode. Next episode, we'll actually probably start it out doing Tavern Defense on Insane, doing the survival of it as well, both for XP and primarily to get a genie pet, because if you guys remember, I kind of deleted my last one, which really sucks, but what are you gonna do? So yeah, once we get that genie pet, we'll move on to Karathiki Jungle and farm this, and we'll farm this survival until we're able to get into Infested. And once we've done Infested on campaign, we'll probably be able to do the survival for Infested pretty damn easily. And once you're able to farm armor on Infested's survival, you're pretty much done with the grind part of the game, like getting to the end game grind. Because you can farm Infested Nightmare Hardcore survival to get the best armor in the game, period. This is where all of the people with the most time and want to get like the best items, this is where they go to farm their armor. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Chiku, I'm looking at you. You probably know this. Okay. But yeah, that's the whole route. And once we've done that, we're done. We're finished with the walkthrough. The walkthrough part of the series. The series itself isn't over. So what I mean by that is the walkthrough part of this series is the section where we're going from level 0 to being able to do any map you want as fast and as easily as possible. So that means that you'll probably have, by the end of the walkthrough section, the ability to easily farm yourself up to like at least 5k in your primary stat. And with that, you should be able to do any map in the game very easily. And then my goal with the walkthrough will be complete. But again, the Quest for Completion series is not finished once that's done, right? Because the Quest for Completion series goal is to do every map on the hardest difficulty from a fresh account. It just so happens that the first like 5 or so, 6 maybe episodes of it are going to be walkthrough, where I'm doing everything not as efficiently as possible, but as like comfortably and as fast as possible at the same time. But yeah, so that is more or less the whole announcement. I'll explain more about everything later as we get into it. But for now, that's it. I'm going to go back onto ranked online mode, and I'll show you guys what I've changed between episodes. As you can see, we have a shit ton of mana, and that's primarily from farming DreadDungeon. And I'll show you guys another thing. This is a piece of armor I got from doing DreadDungeon in my first attempt on it, and holy shit. But yeah, you guys can see this is why we are doing this map. With 1k stats, we'll probably be able to get to that 3k stat number pretty quickly. No promises. But yeah, announcements over. Let's get into the actual video part of the video. The only thing, as I have just realized, that I changed between episodes was this. I put the fish in a bowl on our summoner like I said I would. And that's it. I didn't actually do anything else. There we go. Just in case though, here are all the characters before we go into the build. I should actually start doing this more and more. I'm going to show off the character stats before we get into builds from now on, I think, yeah. But I also want to show you guys another thing. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is a weapon. You're going to need to have some decent weapon for what we're going to be doing right now. I would say get around this, get it to the point where you're able to do about 10,000 damage a shot on Nightmare. Yeah, just about 10,000. The main thing is how to upgrade your armor for your Jester. At least for the moment. There will be a more in-depth guide potentially later. So the way you want to upgrade your armor is getting your resistances maxed out completely first. So when you have a matching set, the way you know your resistances are going to get maxed out is if each one of these percentages goes up to 42 by the end of it. And then if all of these have 42 in each of their resistances, then on Nightmare, these like total numbers will be 90 in each of them, which is as high as you can get it. And that way you don't waste any upgrade points or anything like that. We're not going to reach that, but we're going to get as close as we can. So, quick thing, when you're upgrading these, at least for the armors, just for the armors, hold shift the entire time, right? So we're going to upgrade the generic resistance and it's going to cap out. Now we can't upgrade it anymore. And we did like, what, 4 upgrades for that? But if we hold shift, it'll upgrade it up until the 9th one. And every 10 upgrades, you can make these caps go like over. So we went from 30, which we couldn't upgrade past, to 32. And then just keep doing that until it reaches 42 in a given resistance. And just hold shift the entire time and you won't have to worry about it. And that's pretty much the long and short of how you upgrade your armor. And now if you've done something like this where it's, already completely upgraded, but it's not at 42 for the other stats, then you choose what you want to upgrade. So for now, I'm just going to upgrade like the damage. I'm not going to waste too much mana on this. Or not waste, I'm not going to use too much mana on this at the moment because it's just not worth it. These pieces of armor aren't good enough to justify that mana cost. But getting the resistances like semi-maxed out is definitely worth it. Same thing, just hold shift the entire time. The reason I'm doing generic first for these is because so far in all the armor pieces, generic is the first one that reaches 30. For this one, generic will only reach 15 in the, like 8 upgrades that it gets from holding shift. So you want to get one that reaches 30 so you don't waste that like 10 level upgrade thing. So for this one, we're going to upgrade the poison. Then we're going to go back and forth until we can go and upgrade generic. So that's pretty much it. When you get a new piece of armor, upgrade the highest number resistance first until it gets to its cap of 30% or whatever it is for the type of armor you have. And by type, I mean like, transcendent, mythical, or supreme, stuff like that, because they're different. And then work on, holding shift the entire time, upgrading that specific number up to 42. There we go. And boom. All of our armor is basically upgraded now. And this is the resistances we're looking at. I'm speaking very strangely right now. I apologize. So now we're going to be taking like 81% less damage from all enemies, which is going to be really, really important because DreadDungeon kind of sucks for its first wave. It's a lot better for the survival, or no, it's a lot better for the campaign first wave than it is for survival, but it's still not that good. So fair warning there. As always, whenever we're going into a map that we're going to build for, start out on your, what is this, Aramunk? And I forgot to do something earlier. because our Jester doesn't have a pet right now, I'm going to actually put this fish in a bowl. Even though it doesn't attack or anything, it does give us a whole bunch of extra stats, which will mean that we can reach that threshold of 10,000 damage even easier. It won't matter that much for the campaign, to be honest, just as long as you're able to do an okay amount of damage, but for the next part, it will be very important. Sorry for that cut there, I had to clear my throat. Okay, let's get into DreadDungeon. So, the first wave really sucks. Doesn't matter if you're doing it on survival, at least for now. Doesn't matter if you're doing it on survival or campaign, you just don't have any mana. Here's the enemies that are going to be coming through. The main thing is up there, the Sharkins, the Djinns, and the other thing that I forgot the name of, spiders. They're the only ones that are really going to be able to do anything here because everything else is going to die to our aura. We're going to just put one aura stack on the center crystal, and then we'll be running around on our Jester or whatever DPS character you have up, and just killing everything around us. And prioritizing the Sharkins and the Djinns, because if I remember correctly, everything else will die. But we don't have enough we don't have enough DU to do a buff beam, so instead, we're going to put a triangle of shields, reflection beams, around our center crystal, and do your best to make them like. Actually, you could do 2 DU. I just realized that you don't really care how much DU these cost, so yeah, you can pull this off if you want to. Anyways, make a big ass shield that covers your crystal completely. Swap to your Jester, and continue. Oh, I'll explain some other things when the times get boring. By boring, I mean when I have time to explain things. Mainly about like why we're doing the route we are specifically, because there's a few interesting facts that I'm not sure if you guys know fully about, and I think it would be cool to know. Also, get this Jinn before he destroys your auras. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. Almost everything else in this map, like these Sharkins and all that stuff, even the not the Sharkins, everything except for the Sharkins and the Djinns are gonna get killed like automatically by these auras. Don't hit the crystal, you jackass. Okay, there we go. You can upgrade the auras a little bit. Only up to level 2 is what I would recommend. Otherwise, you're really gonna be wasting levels. Yeah, do a better job of defending than I am. I'll tell you that. I'm doing a very bad job of defending. Oh, but once all the Sharkins are dead, you're kind of good. It'll just be a lot of you sitting in the middle of the crystal so all the spiders die in the aura, and just shooting at things. Because the orcs can't get to your crystal, and that's kind of the only thing that matters because the archers can't really shoot your crystal. But yeah, that's the first wave, and the first wave is the hardest. It is much harder on the survival first wave than it is on the campaign, trust me. I guess. Okay, now this is the part where I actually use Chiku's build instead of just something that I plop down. This is going to be a bit rough, but follow along as best you can. So you're going to place one stack of auras right here. Actually, we have a lot more time than I thought we did. Stack of auras right there, and then the next stack of auras right there. Sure. I actually forget where you're supposed to place these, but I think that's roughly the right spot. Next, go on your EV as always. I love EV, truly the best class in the game. Put a buff beam that's 4 DU right here, around something like that, and then put a 1 DU reflector right here. Then, next to the crystal right here, put another 1 DU reflector, and then down here, like towards the bottom of these steps, with a 4 DU buff beam, place it like that, place a reflector in front of it like yay, one like yay, yeah, something like that, and then one behind it like this. 1 DU for all of them, of course. And then on the right side here, place a 2 DU physical beam. And then right here, you're going to want to place another, I think 4 DU? 4 DU buff beam right there, along with, I think 2 1 DU reflection beams. We'll see if I'm right at the end. Now that you've got all your beams down, you swap over to your, whatever this character is, mage, yes? And you're going to place down 2 lightning towers and a deadly striker facing this way. So there's the deadly striker. There's the 2 lightning towers, and we actually have 1 DU to spare. Very interesting. Okay, now next is you're going to go on your summoner, place down a archer, a spider, a mage, come on, mage, and another archer. You should be able to place mages on top of spiders. I know I didn't. Place a mage right here, and then on this, this is supposed to be a 5 DU buff beam. Oops. Place a spider, a mage on top of the spider, then just place 1, 2, 3, and 4 archers. And then I like to do is put an archer back here and a mage over here. Something like that. And then we have one extra DU left over. DU? I don't know what to call it. So I'm just going to place that over there. You can really do whatever you want with that last archer minion. And since we have a little bit of spare DU, I'm actually going to use it to put up another reflector right about yay. That should be good enough. Something like that. Something like that. And now, from now on, all you're going to do is you're going to sit around on your Jester, killing things, and upgrading the buff beams. You're going to have Ogres. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this. We're going to have Skogres, Sky Ogres. You see that thing right there? That is a giant, like, I don't know how to describe it other than like a flying fortress of death. That's what I was trying to say there. Hello, I'm doing a voiceover. I couldn't explain things very well in the video, so I'm going to do a voiceover to explain them better now. So, as far as the build goes, and the campaign build and the survival build, we're finished. We've built everything we need to. The campaign and survival build are the exact same. Wave 1 you're going to struggle like hell, and Wave 2 you build everything. Your upgrade priority order is going to be tower buff beams, then your auras, and then your damaging towers, which is like the deadly strikers and the lightning towers in this case, and then you're done. You can upgrade other things if you want to, but it's not necessary. Just repair between waves and you're Gucci. Next, I have a little description for you guys. That flying fortress of death is called a skycopter. They are flying enemies, and what they do is they'll spawn in at a certain point, and they'll carry with them, as they're flying, a sky ogre, a skogre. These are regular ogres, but they can't target your crystal, and I think they have a little bit more HP than regular ogres. When it drops off the skogre, like America dropping off its first bomb in Hiroshima, they will then begin pestering you with rockets. I say pestering, but I really mean obliterating, because these rockets are heat-seeking and they do a shit ton of damage. They will target either you or your towers, whichever's nearby. They don't really discriminate that much. And once they die, that's when the second part of this joke, of this play, right, where you are the fool, you are the victim, begins. They will do a death spiral and release the second nuke. This is Nagasaki, and you are ground zero. Okay. They'll do a death spiral, they'll land down, and in like a medium-ish area for AoE, they'll do a shit ton of damage, and it'll probably insta-kill you if they're not being weakened by a strength drain aura. But yeah, you're going to see them more and more as we get farther in the game. Be ready for them. They're probably going to become your most hated enemy from now on, probably alongside like the Jins or something. But yeah, sorry, but we got to deal with them now, and there's your little description for them. I'm not doing this voiceover to explain that. I'm doing this voiceover to go a little bit more in depth as to why we are going to be doing the route we're going to be doing. And if you don't care for this, just go to the next section. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to have like a timestamp for that. You'll just have to find it on your own. So let me get to explaining. The reason we're going to be doing the route that we are, which is DreadDungeon into Karathiki Jungle into Infested Ruins, is because there was a change recently in Dungeon Defenders that made Karathiki Jungle and Infested Ruins have the same loot quality. And by that I mean they just buffed Karathiki Jungle's loot quality to that of Infested Ruins. If you don't know, every map has a loot quality on like different difficulties, right? So basically doing a map on like Wave 33 Nightmare Hardcore is going to give a much better loot in terms of quality than doing the same map on like Easy, not Hardcore Wave 2. There's a maximum that this loot quality can get up to, and Infested Ruins reaches that maximum like cap in about 20 waves if you're doing the survival, if I remember correctly. And after that, that is the highest quality loot you are ever going to get in terms of enemy drops. So basically like the best armor possible that will drop from doing Infested after like wave 20. Now, Infested definitely earns this because it's very, very difficult because of a few factors. The first one, and the most obvious, is that the enemies have a shit ton of health and they do a lot of damage. The second is that in the campaign, there's one of the most annoying bosses in the game that you have to deal with that has a shit ton of health. And also you have Harbingers, mini ogres, and wasps, which are their own flying contraptions of death. So you have all these things to deal with, but reward at the end of the tunnel is that you get really, really high quality armors and loot in general for doing this. But they applied this loot quality multiplier thing onto Karathiki Jungle. And Karathiki Jungle doesn't have the Harbingers, no wasps, no really annoying final boss, no mini ogres, none of that. It does have its own downsides though. Before I get into the downsides, it also, bonus, the enemies there have a third as much HP as they do on Infested Ruins. So that's a really big thing as well. But let's get into the negatives. The first one is that unlike Infested Ruins, Karathiki Jungle is fucking gigantic, and it's really annoying to build because of it. So that's going to be one thing that's going to be really annoying to deal with. And the other one is the main reason, to be honest, as to why we're going to be going into Infested rather than Karathiki Jungle for all the super endgame armor farming. Every enemy in the game has its own like loot quality, right? So a goblin is like the lowest loot quality, and I think a mage is the highest loot quality. Infested Ruins has the largest amount, like the largest concentration of these high quality enemies for its like given like map size and enemy pool. And Karathiki Jungle is kind of dookie. So while yes, you can get like, you know, the same quality loot, it's probably going to take a lot longer to get that in Karathiki Jungle than it will in Infested. And for the eagle-eyed viewers out there, you guys have probably noticed that in the local thing, I have already completed Karathiki Jungle. So yes, it is possible with our current stats to go straight there and skip DreadDungeon, but believe me, having been the guy that did that and went into the survival, it's not worth it. It's really, really painful. It's just a whole lot of effort that's just doesn't really pan out that well. So that's why we're doing everything in the way that we are. Next episode is going to be Karathiki Jungle, and we're going to start it out with Tavern Defense actually, to get ourselves a genie and some XP. I think I've said everything I need to say, so I'm going to hand it back over to live commentary, Ian. And that's the end of the commentary. I did that little commentary bit because I really wasn't explaining things very well, but I've got my thoughts a little bit more collected now. Anyways, we're on the final wave. We're not going to introduce any other characters right now. In fact, we're only going to do one character the entire time for DreadDungeon, I think. Just because it's the reward that you get for having extra characters, or not the reward that you get, but the extra rewards you get for the extra characters, it's just not worth it. The accessories are not going to be that good, so it's not worth like adding the extra difficulty and time. But yeah, so the reason why I was saying earlier that the survival is going to be harder than the campaign is because at the start of this, right, wave 1 of the campaign, you have like 200 mana, which is just barely enough to get down 3 auras and a triangle around your crystal of reflector beams, right? And then you got to really duke it out with all the enemies. But the thing is, there are no ogres, right? So it's actually not that bad. The only thing you have to watch out for is the Jins and the Sharkins. For some reason, on survival, right, you still get 200 starting mana. You don't change that until you're able to get to like, I don't know, wave 10 in survival. So you're going to start out with 200 mana, and on top of that, there are 2 ogres on the first wave. And I think there are like also wyverns and other enemies as well, but the main thing is the ogres. Like, man, why? So we'll get to there when we get to there, and it's going to be really annoying. And that's the main reason why you need to have like a decently powerful weapon, is just to deal with the ogres. But for the moment, I'll show you guys another method of dealing with the ogres that I love. I like using this a lot. So if you are on Jester, you get your Wheel of Fortuna, you do a sword, and then you do an Eternia Crystal, and it kills a percentage of enemies. And that's just going to kill any type of enemy. I don't know exactly how it chooses, but it can kill like a shit ton of ogres all at once, and you don't have to deal with them at all, which is really, really nice whenever you can get it to happen, right? So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, which I don't think we will have time for because all the enemies are dying fast, is instead of doing sword, sword, crystal, you do sword, 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 and that just does like a percentage of the enemy's HP damage, or the percentage of an enemy's HP as damage to like all of them, right? So it can do a lot of damage to all the enemies at once, rather than the percentage where it just kills a certain amount of enemies. It's kind of depends on the use case. Anyways, so this is the accessory you get for completing this. It's not that good, but I'll just dump it onto our apprentice because why not, I guess. Okay, so yeah, that is the campaign. It wasn't that bad, but I'll quickly get into the survival and show you guys why it's so bad. Oh, by the way, secondary thing. You guys are going to earn a lot of mana by doing the survival. There's just a lot of items on the ground that are worth a decent amount each. Side note, it is worth checking the shop to see if there are any good pets. The weapons and armor sections are not useful. And there weren't, so that sucks. So here's the reason why the survival is so bad. You can choose a starting wave up to wave 8 on a map once you've finished it, if it has survival, so like when the campaign, Lost Quests, or Shards maps. But let's say you want to start on wave 1. It's not going to start you on wave 1. It's going to start you at the map's earliest wave 1, which in this case is wave 5, right? And the amount of mana you get per chest is just 40, right? Like I said earlier, you're going to get 100, not 100, 200 total mana. With that, you got to deal with 2 ogres, 2 djinns, 7 sharkins, and then the rest will just die to auras. So that's going to suck. But you might say, wait, why don't I just start on like wave 8? Won't I get more mana then? Which, by the way, normally you'd be correct. I just realized we haven't done survival so far in this series. But as you can see, we just get more enemies, and the chests, they don't give you anything. Although it did change the starting wave to wave 8. Basically, every map in the game has its own like internal number for what wave is its starting wave. And some of them are actually like past 8, so you can't do anything below that. Some of them are below 8, like that one where it's 5. Either way, we're gonna have to deal with those ogres on wave 1, and I'm thinking we're gonna go with sword, sword, sword to deal with them, because sword, sword, crystal is kind of unreliable. But of note, the moment that you have gotten past that, after the first wave, you can build everything you want on the second wave, right? And you can just AFK, right? Just upgrade your buff beams, upgrade your auras, and then upgrade your deadly strikers and lightning towers, and boom, you're done. After that, you can just fly by easy breezy mode, right? And then the extra other thing is that once you have reached past wave 8, the chests will start giving more mana whenever you finish a wave, or whenever you start the map, right? So if I started on wave 10, it would give me more mana than like 40 per chest. So later on, when we're going to be starting on like wave 15 or something like that, we should have enough mana to build pretty much everything just on the first wave. So this is like a one-time hurdle that you have to pass through. And once you're done with it, you're done with it. Now you can have like a much easier time. And that's not even mentioning the good loot that you're going to get. And I'll expand more about the loot later on. Alright, this is the first time we're doing survival at all in the series, so I'm going to explain some of the mechanics very quickly. It's not too complicated, but long and short of it, thank you to the cars outside for being loud once again. Long and short of it is that survival is the exact same as campaign, but the maps last longer. Like, you can't see the final wave right now. There is a final wave. The maps last longer. The later in the waves you get, the better rewards you're going to get. And as far as the timer goes, there's no timer between waves, and there's no bosses at all on the maps. So if you would normally have a boss, you will no longer have a boss if you're doing survival. The build we're using is going to be the exact same as we did for campaign, but it's going to be really hard compared to campaign. I'll be honest. It's going to be a lot harder to do than campaign was, because we're going to have to deal with 2 ogres on the first wave, which sucks. That's really going to be annoying, but we're going to have to deal with it. So the plan is, I have a set route in mind, and I want to tell you guys what that is very quickly. Oh yeah, on survival you get like pet rewards. I'll explain that stuff when we get there, but for now, the plan is start out here. You're going to have a Sharkin spawn up here, right? 7 total Sharkins, 2 djinns, 2 ogres. Sharkins will spawn up here. You will kill this Sharkin. If you can, this is not super important, but if you can kill this djinn over here. And if you do, great. If you don't, whatever. Don't spend too much time on it. Then run straight over here. There will be a djinn probably trying to destroy your aura or one of these walls. Kill that djinn. And then downstairs over this area, there will be, I think, 2 or so Sharkins. Or actually, I think down here, there will be 2 Sharkins. Deal with them very quickly. I'm saying these things now because during the wave, I will be fully focused on stuff. But once the ogre spawns, you want to do either sword, sword, sword with the Wheel of Fortuna, or Etheria Crystal and sword, sword. Triple sword is going to do percentage of every enemy's HP and just remove it. Sword, sword, crystal is just going to kill a percent of like all the enemies, so if you get lucky, it might just kill the ogre immediately. I think, oh my god, the cars are so loud. I think if the ogre is closer to the crystal, then it'll more likely kill it, but I'm not sure. Either way, let's start the first wave, and you guys will see why I tried to explain things then instead of now. So, Sharkin spawns here. Kill it as soon as you can. Oh no, it hit us. There's the djinn. Okay, I was able to kill it. That's great. And then back here, this djinn over here is being a jackass. Try not to get webbed, by the way. That's going to be a big thing. Do not get webbed. If you get webbed, you will have a rough time. I am doing a very bad job of killing the Sharkins. You really want to get these Sharkins out of the way. They are very important to get rid of. If you can't kill them all the way, at least make sure that you are, I'm going to do sword, sword, sword here. At least make sure that you are damaging them a significant amount so that your auras can kill them. Anyways, so here's the ogre. Watch out for the spiders. Be moving around pretty constantly, so that the ogre isn't an issue. If the ogre spawns down there instead of up here or where that other ogre came from, you will have a much easier time, because in that case, he'll get stuck in the area down there, like it was, you guys saw in the first episode, like all those orcs did. He'll get stuck down there and he'll just start walking around in circles, so it's much easier to deal with. So a possible strategy, definitely a possible strategy, is to actually like do the build, because it's not that much building, and then restart the map if you don't get an ogre to spawn like down here, or at least one of the ogres to spawn down here. And if you do that, it'll be a lot easier. Also, I should mention this, I did get a little bit of mana. I did get a little bit of mana between this recording and last, or not mana, XP, and that's just because I did this first wave, but I didn't explain things very well, so I decided to kind of scratch it. So I did get like 300,000 XP from that, but that isn't really that much. So I wanted to tell you guys that I'm sorry, but I really want to have these videos be a bit more concise. I'll try to avoid that in the future. Okay, so we're going to be building once more for first wave. By the way, there's this big ass mana crystal right here, and I don't want to use 500 mana without having everything built, because I'm not sure if we will have enough mana. So what you can do is you can do drop mana here, and you can just drop like, 500 mana right here. That way you can pick up that mana crystal up there without like wasting any mana. Sorry, this is kind of like very frugal stuff. I just realized we have sorry, brain. Okay. Build is the same as it was in campaign. But I think it's kind of easier because there's no timer to deal with. Personally, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'm going to try to keep it pretty brief and explain more important things than the build during this the build phase. Basically, how do you guys choose the loot? That's probably something you're wondering. How do I choose the loot for the survival? I'm only going to be looking at the loot, much less choosing it, after wave 15. And that's because after every single wave, there are 40 pieces of gear to look through, and I want to make 100% sure that of those 40, at least one is going to be good enough to replace something that we already have on one of our other characters. Also, I'm doing a voiceover, but you guys should probably be pretty used to that by now. By the way, it's important to note that anytime we do survival on a map, we're going to be going for exclusively armor drops. I'll explain why later, but for now, I'll explain how. The map determines what to drop based on what can be used by the current heroes, and since we want only armor drops, we're going to be using only summoners because they can't actually use any weapons. We don't want any weapons because of 3 reasons. 1 is that they compete with armor drops when it comes to enemy drops. 2 is that they kind of suck when it comes to survival. And 3, high quality weapons can easily and pretty consistently be acquired by doing maps on campaign. I'll list off 3 of my favorites right here: Moonbase Nightmare Hardcore, King's Game Nightmare Hardcore, and Akatiki Jungle Insane Hardcore. Those 3 will drop some pretty damn good weapons, especially Akatiki, and pretty consistently too. Now here's 2 extra things that I want to show/tell you guys. The first one is a neat trick for getting extra pets. As I said earlier, survival drops pets, and it drops them at the start of specific waves depending on the map. DreadDungeon specifically gives you the pets on wave 15, so here's the trick. When you get to wave 14, start the wave, and before the wave ends at any point, drop in 3 of your extra characters. And at the start of wave 15, they'll all spawn in and each get a pet. So basically you get 3 extra pets without any added difficulty for the prior waves. You can do this with any pet reward prior to the final wave, because on the final wave your characters don't spawn in. The next thing is to use Jester to upgrade all of your buildings. For this build specifically and my stats, just go on Jester, get all the mana you can, and upgrade the buff beams, then the auras, then the mage towers in that order. And then after that, you can just kind of AFK. It should only take like 2 or 3 waves to do, because Jester has an incredibly fast cast rate, so yeah, it's pretty easy to do, and Jester is definitely the best character for it. Just upgrade your towers, and then swap to your summoner and go watch YouTube or play another game. You can basically AFK this. All you gotta do is tab in once the wave is finished, repair stuff, maybe look at some gear, and boom, you're done. Personally, I was watching YouTube and playing Minecraft the entire time I was grinding here. And yeah, I'll show you guys exactly how to do the pet trick later on in this video, but I think as far as what I have to say and all that, that's pretty much it. Oh, we got an achievement. Right, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's our first time getting anywhere in survival, so we got that achievement. Let's go. Alright, we're on wave 14. The wave's about to end. I think I might I don't know. I don't know. I probably will look at the loot from this wave. But I do know from testing, by the way, I should mention this. I do know from testing. Oh, F6, introduce your extra characters. Okay. You guys will see. We're going to get 4 pet rewards, even though we were only here for 1 character. Boom, just like that. Only works on the waves before the final wave. Alright, so there's a lot of green things on the map. By the way, those pets, probably worthless. But we got them. You know, we did it. We have the pet rewards. I'm thinking I will keep anything that looks vaguely useful. So like this one. Or maybe this one. No, this one. Okay. And the rest of these are just going to drop. Alright. So, I was saying something. Yeah. I've tested this out on local with just not changing our stats at all. And you can fully AFK this entire thing, just completely, with no issues. Well, at least with just 1 character alive. With multiple characters, maybe not as much. But with the current stats that we have, like at the start of the episode, and they didn't really change that much, you can completely AFK this entire map on survival with this build. I did it myself. It was really easy. But yeah, now that we're on this wave, everything's going to be green, and it's probably worth picking up the chest as well. But the way that I'm going to be looking at the loot is just going into Summoner Overload mode once I've opened all the chests, and then just hovering over all the pieces of loot that I see. If you want to hide the enemies on the map, you press O. If you want to hide your own towers on the map, you press P. Basically, all you have to do in between the waves is just use a flash heal right here, maybe 2 flash heals, depending on if you're on the later waves or not, and that'll heal all the towers nearby. And that's like all the maintenance you need to do between waves. It's very, very nice. So now that I've opened all the chests, I'm going to go look at all the mythical gear. And this is going to be very boring, so I'm probably just going to skip to the parts where I pick something up. Or actually, you know what? That's just so annoying. I'll skip to the part where I'm actually sorting through the loot that I got, and I'll show that to you guys individually, and I'll tell you guys why I picked it up. Side note, masks on the map are accessories. Masks on the map are accessories. They're probably not worth your time looking at, but I don't know if you if you want to. They're probably not going to take up a slot that you're actually using because they're not armor items. But for accessories, we'll probably be doing. Fuck, what will we be doing for accessories? I'm gonna try out Arcane Library maybe because Chiku has recommended that extensively. So maybe that, or my bread and butter personally is doing Lab Assault, but I don't know if we'll actually be able to do that properly. Here's what the accessory looks like. Not that good. And that's the whole map. That's all of the dungeon. Pretty much finished. We got a Supreme here, which I'm kind of surprised by, kind of not. Sadly, you don't get any extra chests on the final wave, although that would be great. But the chest from before in the final wave did drop like fucking 3 or 4 maybe Transcendence, which was great. I will explain why I'm picking up the pieces I am afterwards, in case I haven't said that already. Accessories, are these any good? Doubt it. I did pick up some other accessories, but there's just kind of meh. The giraffe on a treadmill is really garbage. You can definitely just ditch it. And as far as the accessories go, yep, the map reward was trash. Love to see it. Alright, I'm gonna go pick up more of this, pick up more of the stuff, and we'll probably just repeat this a few more times. But just for information's sake, I did not equip any items that I got from doing this for that completion. That was like, same stats, I didn't change anything. So it is absolutely possible to just basically completely AFK it, repairing between rounds, and do this whole thing like, you know, brain off mode basically. Of note, we got really a lot of money from that. We're at 2.5 billion mana, and that kind of a thing only increases as you do harder and harder maps. So keep that in mind. Alright, I'm gonna sort through all this everything. Oh, by the way, I did also I kind of accidentally deleted all of my books here. I had to remake this entire folder because I deleted the the stuff here from before. So oops, my bad. Since the last video, I have done a lot of DreadDungeon. I'm not quite done with the map yet, but I'm nearly finished with it, and I have realized something. I didn't actually tell you guys how to sort through all the gear you're getting and how to determine what to keep and what not to keep, which is pretty important. So this is how I sort through all the gear I get, and it's how I recommend you guys sort through all the gear that you guys get. By the way, before I get too far into this, I'm a lot better at explaining, or I guess I'm a lot better at sorting through the tower gear than I am with the DPS gear, which is why the DPS folder is gigantic and bloated, and the tower gear is at a nice 28. So I'll start with the tower gear first, and before I actually get into that, I do have to say, I am using a script for this bit. I tried my best to explain all this in one take for the past, I think, 3 hours straight, but I just wasn't able to do it, so I apologize if there are any cuts or if it sounds very strange at a certain moment. But yeah, let's continue. The first thing I look at when it comes to builder gear is the tower stats and the upgrades. One of the tower stats has to reach 300 once I've applied the upgrades, and the other important tower stats have to reach 200. I'll explain what I mean by important later, but for now, yeah. It's fine if they're off by like 10 or so points here or there, because that's not going to affect things too much, but try to keep it with the 300 in one of the big stats and 200 in the other important stats, and you'll be good. That's the general rule, and it's the easiest filter to apply to any piece of gear that you get for a builder. It'll help you a lot. It really removes a lot of the headache. It's been really helpful for me, at least. For the next part, you gotta know which heroes care about which stats, and I've explained all this stuff before, so I'll give like a quick speedrun version of it. Your apprentice cares the most about damage, then about rate, then about range, then about HP, and she barely cares about HP, that's why that's so low. Your EV cares the least about range, and the other three stats are pretty equal. I'd say HP and damage are pretty equal, and rate is like the least important of those three. For your summoner, your HP is the most important, then it's your damage, and then the rate and range are pretty equal. And for your huntress and your aura monk, for them it's range the most important, then it's the damage, then it's the HP, and then it's the rate. It's pretty important to note that the primary stat is by far the most important stat, so don't be surprised if one of these primary stats is like 1,000 above some other stat. The reason that's important is because let's say we have a piece of gear that is negative in terms of its tower HP, or really low in terms of its tower HP, but it has very solid damage and rate and some decent range. This piece of gear right here would suck for any character except for an apprentice, because an apprentice really does not care about the HP, but really does care about the damage and the rate. I even have some folders set up here for example, a trap or aura character, where these pieces of gear will either have 0, very low, or negative rate, but they have very good range and other stats. So that's how I sort through all of the builder gear. DPS gear is a lot funkier, it's a lot more wishy-washy. The very first thing though is resistances. You need to make 100% sure that any DPS gear that you get will have all 4 resistances. The next thing is to make sure that the resistances aren't super negative, and that if they are super negative, the upgrades can make up for it. In general, for DPS gear, you do also want like a lot of upgrades to get all of these resistances maxed out, but yeah, that's like the easiest thing to apply to them. That's their biggest filter overall, having all 4 resistances and making sure that they can cap out when you apply these upgrades. The next part is kind of similar to the builders where they all have the most important stat, but it's a lot more wishy-washy, so it's kind of hard to explain, and I'm not very good at explaining it either. But the general rule is that a piece has to have decent HP and decent hero damage, and then it has to have a lot in another different stat. So let me run down the whole list now. Ability 1 is super good for tower boost monks, or I guess kind of general use monks as well. Ability 2 is super good for a lot of things. A DPS monk, a hero boost monk, barbarians especially, jesters, and DPS EVs. So if a piece has like okay HP and damage but a fuck ton of ability 1, then it's going to be something that's super good for a tower boost monk. But if its HP is super low, but damage and ability 2 are super high, then it's something that's going to be great for like a barbarian or a DPS EV. Obviously, you want to have all 3 of these stats be super high, or I guess all 4 technically. But that's my general rule. While I'm at it, I should talk about Jester, because he's a very funky hero in this section. So he cares a fair amount about HP, a fair amount about damage, which is pretty normal, but he also cares about having a high cast rate, because you're going to be upgrading all of your buildings with him. Next, he cares a little bit about having ability 1, not that much, and he cares a fair amount about ability 2 because Wheel of Fortuna is busted. And the strangest part about him, he cares about having negative tower range. It's so weird. He's such a weird class. But yeah, that's how Jesters work, and that's pretty much it. I think that's it for the whole section about DPS heroes. As I said, it's very wishy-washy, it's very strange, and I'm not too good at explaining it myself, but that's how I go about it. So that's how I determine what gear to pick up. It's pretty confusing when it comes to like the whole DPS things, but I think the tower section or the builder section is pretty clear and concise, and you guys should be able to apply it to your own situations pretty comfortably. But if you're still not sure exactly what to do, you can probably just skip to the end of this video, see what I have equipped, and follow along with that and try to get similar gear. I should mention that I started doing DreadDungeon with 4 summoners instead of just 1. The map is a lot harder as a result. There's way more enemies. The enemies have a lot more HP, but you do get a fair amount more loot. And you can't really AFK it unless you do a lot of stuff, like improving the builds. You gotta move back the auras, place the Deadly Strikers, Lightning Towers section like farther towards the middle of the stairs instead of towards the bottom of it, make your minion walls a little bit better, and upgrade literally everything except for the reflectors to max. But if you do it, you get like a lot more loot, so it's kind of more worth it. I don't know, you can't really AFK it still in that case. It's kind of luck dependent. But yeah, you could definitely go without it. Even with that, most of our characters aren't actually going to be level 78 by the end of this episode, which means that we're probably not going to hit the 2.5 to 3k stat goal that I set at the start of this one. We just can't equip a lot of the good transcendence that we've gotten, which is really kind of sucky. But next episode for sure, towards the start of it, we will hit 78 on those characters and equip all the gear. And I want to say we'll have about 2.8k for the primary stats on all of our characters. But yeah, it might be a while before I upload again, just because, you know, I have school and all that starting up. But I'm always in the Dungeon Defenders Discord in the DD1 section, so ask me anything there. Next video will be out whenever it's out, and I'm currently doing a lot of testing for it, so keep an eye out for that. Not anytime soon, I think, but when it's out, it'll be a lot of progression all in one episode. Alright, let's get back to the video. And while I'm at it, I should mention that I'm starting on wave 19 now, and you have more than enough mana to build all of your defenses on wave 1, starting that wave, and you even have enough mana to upgrade this buff beam, and primarily this middle buff beam up to their levels that you see here. I think you could probably, actually no, that's probably the max you can do. But you could just kind of wait between waves to upgrade all your other defenses. You might have to pay a bit more attention to the auras, but I don't really think that'll matter. And another note, on the very first wave of any survival, I think you don't actually have any Skycopters or Sky Ogres to deal with. The second wave of the survival, though, they'll start showing up. So keep that in mind. It'll be a lot easier on the very first wave. The game kind of crashed in the middle of that wave, or at the end of that wave, which kind of sucks, but there's kind of a silver lining, and that is a genie. Nowhere near as good as the original one, but it has negative range, which is really nice because we're going to be having this on our Jester. It's got hero damage, it's got cast rate, very high cast rate, and it's got ability too. So it has almost everything that I want except for levels and hero HP. But that doesn't matter that much. It does cost 1 billion mana, which is a lot. It's kind of a lot. But that's kind of, it's compared to having to do like a whole bunch of shit to unlock it, it's not that bad. I don't think we can use it on our Jester quite yet, yeah, but once we can, it'll be big. I'll probably just go on my Jester and level up it a little bit in the DreadDungeon run we're about to do right now, but I'll show you guys exactly how it works and more info about it like later. I'm thinking I'll actually upload a separate video after this one where I show you the usefulness of having a genie. And also a map to get a very solid weapon for it. We'll see how it goes. Either way, let's get back into DreadDungeon. What? What? Or I could probably just move the Ensnare Aura back. Yeah, I think I just placed it too far forward. So, best I can guess is that I placed the Ensnare Aura too far forward, because I do think that these stats should be able to handle the map with 4 players, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. I'm 1000% going to die. 1,000,000% going to die. What the fuck? I lived. Yo! It's okay. Better than nothing. let us hope this is the last run. And that's just about it. That's all the runs of DreadDungeon for this episode, and possibly all the runs of DreadDungeon for the entire series. I don't really see a point in going back here, because we've already done a Nightmare Hardcore campaign and the survival, but maybe I'll check out like mix mode and... No, I won't do per-strategy. I don't like that mode. It's not worth it. But yeah, so that's DreadDungeon, and you're probably wondering why I have a bunch of gear on the ground. And you're also probably wondering how many runs it took to get all of this gear. So, in total, it took 8 runs of DreadDungeon. It might have been 7, but I'm not sure 100%. I might have lost something in the recording, so let's say 8 runs of DreadDungeon. Of those 8 runs, I did 3 of them, having 4 summoners up the entire time. I'm not really sure how much these guys helped with everything. I know they saved me once, but I'm not sure how much they helped. I don't know if I'd say it's worth it, but we'll be using them in the future anyways, so we have them. Alright, so that's the first question. The 8 runs, that's how many it took me. And the gear on the ground. This is the gear we're going to be using on all of our characters. The reason I don't have them equipped on the characters specifically is because, as I said before, they're not 78, so some of them can't use like the Transcendent gear that I have set aside for them. So yeah, that's the reasoning there. And let me show you guys what all the sets look like. So first things first, I'm going to respec my Summoner. I'll be showing them all off on my Summoner because he's the only one who's actually high enough level to, you know, show off these items. So yeah, Summoner. He's more than set, right? The stat goal, I think, was 2.5k in the primary stat, and without having upgraded any of the armor, he's able to reach it pretty damn comfortably, too. Just because he has 2 Fishing Bowls. These things are ridiculously overpowered, and Summoner, as a result, very easily reaches that stat goal. And I don't think there were any doubts about that one, to be honest. Apprentice is going to be the one I show next, and as far as Apprentice goes, it could be better. I would like to have higher stats for the Apprentice, but here are the stats as they are. There we go. That's all the gear. Just about 2.6k damage, and the other stats are as they are. I think this is enough, but I don't think I could have gotten anything better with the gear sets that I had available. Maybe if you guys get luckier, you'll get better stats, but yeah, this is going to be my Apprentice. I do also have a separate chest piece that I can use to swap out with my current one for the Apprentice. It has way less HP, but it has a fair amount more attack rate, so I might end up using this one. I'm not 100% sure. To be honest, I'll probably just end up using this one because having HP is just like an insurance plan. And that's the Apprentice. Next is going to be the EV. EV, to be honest, I don't have like an exact 2.5k, you know, requirement for the stats because there's 3 of them and they're all pretty equal in importance. So for the EV, my goal was to have... why did I double click? My goal was to have for the EV like just pretty equal stats on anything but the range. 2k. Yes. Sorry, if I'm not saying things very well right now. Sorry, I have to respec my Summoner every single time I show a new set of gear. But EV. This is what the EV is going to be using. And, I mean, EV also has 2 weapons, so keep that in mind. On top of everything that's here, she will also have 2 weapons, and pretty comfortably she reaches that 2k stat goal, going above it in pretty much all the areas. I haven't upgraded some of this armor fully yet, so once I've done that, you know, job's finished. That's the Summoner. And last is going to be the Huntress and the Aura Monk. As far as those 2 go, I have 3 sets for them, but I'm only going to use 2 of them. And each of these sets is interchangeable? Yes, they're each interchangeable because they both have the same order of importance in terms of stats. So here's the first set. This is the set I'm thinking about using on the Aura Monk because it has a bit higher cast rate and it has 2.8k in the range, which is pretty big. That's huge. And all the other stats I'm pretty comfortable with. The other set that I have here that I'll probably put on the Huntress, it is a bit worse in terms of the attack rate, but it has a little bit more range. So, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on exactly what I'll do, but that's probably what I'll do. This one will be for the Huntress, and the other one will be for the Apprentice. No, not Apprentice, words. For the Aura Monk. But yeah, I mean, same thing, more or less. Just a bit lower cast rate, and not cast rate, attack rate, and that's it. And I think that's all of them, actually. All I have left to do is just pick up these items in ranked mode and put them on all the characters and upgrade all the stuff. It's gonna be kind of annoying to figure out exactly what I used. But yeah, if you're wondering how I did this, how I have so much mana and all that, I went in and I exported all of my data to local, and then in local I got this custom mission called Mad Mana. From that I got a bunch of mana for upgrading all the gear, and that's how I tested out every single thing to make sure that, you know, we were going to meet the stat goals without actually like wasting a bunch of upgrades or doing things off camera, etc, etc. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. Next episode is going to come out some point in the future. I don't want to give any dates because I don't want to disappoint. But next one, for sure, we will be doing a fair amount of Karathiki Jungle. I have a build for this, and I've tested out this build a fair bit. It's in the description, Dundif Planner version of it. I might make videos. They're not going to be quest for completion videos exactly, but they'll be like related to it. So keep an eye out for that. I'll release those before the next quest for completion episode, I think. So yeah, Karathiki Jungle. By the way, this map, from wave 20 to wave 35, which is its final wave in survival, I was able to get like 225 Transcendence, and that's not even including like the Supremes and above that I got. So this map's going to be huge. We should only really have to do it once if, you know, kind of if we get lucky. And then we might be able to move on straight over to Infested, and then after that, you know, job's done. The whole like walkthrough part of the series is finished, and I'll get to like more fun things. More fun things? More fun for me. For you guys, this is probably like plenty fun. But for me, it's like a lot of planning out and thinking. I'm not very good at that. Chiku, I saw you said in the description, I'm very good at explaining things, or getting my point across. That's because I like redo every single bit that I don't get perfectly right 9 times in a row. I'm very bad with that. That's why like these recordings and these videos come out so infrequently. It's because I'll have something in mind that I want to do, and then I'll spend like 8 hours, or I think my current maximum is like 6 hours straight, just redoing the exact same lines until I say it without making any mistakes and all that stuff. So yeah, it's not saying things perfectly. It is more just doing a lot of takes, and that's why the series takes so long. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.